Everybody, my name's Brandon Powers. I'm the travel director for MidCurrent. Wanted to share with you today one of my favorite flies. This is a little baitfish pattern that I started tying a few years ago. I'm headed down in a few days, going back to the Amazon with a group, going to chase some trophy peacock bass. And this is one of my favorite patterns to fish, not only when I go down there, but pretty much when I travel around the world to chase any sort of toothy predator or predator that's going to want to eat a nice sized baitfish. One of the reasons I like this fly is it's really easy to tie. It only uses a couple of different materials, and more importantly, it's really, really durable. So that when I go places, like the Amazon or in saltwater where you've got toothy fish that are gonna, beat up a fly, this fly, the materials and the way that it's tied, it's gonna last a long time. I've got a couple here that you can see from previous trips. Look at the the tooth marks on the eye of that guy. This was one of the first ones that I ever tied when I took on a trip down to the Amazon years ago. You can see it's been chewed to pieces. It's actually got two different color eyes. They loved it so much I was gluing eyes back on the entire trip because the fly was working so well. So and even then it just kept on fishing. So I'll show you this pattern today, and hopefully it's one that you can adapt to your home waters and use. The hook I'm going to use is a Gamakatsu SL12S, 4/0, 6/0, or what I usually use for most of my flies down in the Amazon. I'm going to tie on a 6/0 today. I like this hook particularly for this fly because it has a little bit of weight. It's heavier gauge. The fly itself is tied without weight, so the little heavier hook allows it to hit the water and sink a little bit, but not too fast. You can see the fly is rather translucent, and so I want it to to sink and kind of slowly move in the water column. I can let it sink to a particular depth and fish it around structure. And kind of get it to hang in a certain part of the water column where I know the fish are wanting to feed. You can always fish on a sinking line too if you wanted to get down a little bit deeper, but it's super lightweight. That hook is really the only thing that gives it much weight and causes it to sink at all. I'm going to start out and use a little bit of GPS thread here. I think this is 100. I'm going to add a little bit of Zap-A-Gap to the hook just to kind of give thread a little bit something else to adhere to. Like I said, durability for me is really important when I tie flies. I like to tie a lot of flies, but I like them to last, and especially when you get out somewhere, like on a saltwater trip or in the Amazon or chasing golden dorado. You don't want to have one or two fish eat a fly, it's working, and then all of a sudden it falls apart, and you don't have any more or the ability to fix the ones that you've got. The main material that I'm going to use is called Krystal hair. Comes in a neat little package like this. I started using this hair a number of years ago. It's really great for streamers. It's a synthetic, right? So it's going to be very lightweight on your fly. You can use a fair amount of it, and it's not going to bulk up. It's not going to add a lot of weight and cause the fly to be tough to cast. It also sheds water really, really well. So that first time you pick up that fly and make a back cast, it's going to shed that water, and the fly is going to be really light to throw. It also, as you can see, comes in really long lengths. So whether you're tying, pike flies or bass flies or whatever, if you want to tie a larger, bulkier fly, the material is going to let you do that pretty well. All right, so I'm going to separate out, 20 or 30 strands. You can see there, this is the clear or white color. I'm going to go ahead and cut those off. Depending on the style of baitfish that you want to imitate, you can make this fly longer, shorter, fatter, depending on where you stack your material. I'm going to make this one just kind of an average size baitfish. So I'm going to measure, 4 or 5 inches back, kind of get my measurement point. I'm going to come down at about 3/4 of the way down. I'm going to stop my fingers there and cut my material. Set that aside for a second. I don't like straight edges when I tie, so I'm going to come in and I'm going to just kind of grab some and make it a little more natural looking. What I'm going to do is kind of right here in the middle of my hook, I'm going to take that material and I'm going to loop it around the thread and lock it in like you might do with some Krystal flash or another synthetic material that tends to be a little bit slippery. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to lay it down. If you can see what I'm doing, I'm bending it around so that the side nearest the eye of the hook is a little bit longer than the other side. And I'm going to pull it tight around the hook, kind of pinch it. I'm going to slide that material up onto the top of the hook. I'm going to let that sit right there, and I'm going to take a couple of wraps over the base. That's going to put those longer materials down on bottom and the ones that are a little bit shorter on top. So I'm going to kind of start building a little bit of a taper to the body as I lay stuff in. A couple of wraps are going to secure it. Remember, you can always trim this down a little bit once you get to the end. But for me, kind of helps me visualize the baitfish shape I want if I kind of start trimming it as I go. I'm going to advance my thread a little bit. I'm going to tie one similar to this one I pulled out of my box. It's going to be kind of baitfish colored with, majority being, kind of a translucent white color, a little bit of a gray on back. So I'm going to grab a little bit more of that hunk of white that I cut off just a second ago. Again, I'm going to tease out some of the ends. And this one's going to be mounted on bottom and kind of create a little bit of the belly of that fly. So again, I'm going to drop my thread. I'm going to bend my Krystal hair around so that the side on the right, closest to my right on the eye of the hook, is a little bit longer than the other. I'm going to pull it tight against the thread. And I'm going to slide it down just a little forward to where I had that last tie-in material. Couple of wraps to secure it. I'm going to kind of let it drape around the hook point there. So now I've kind of got the length to my fly. I've added a little bit of belly material. I'm going to add one piece on top. It's going to start my back color. So a little bit of a dun color here. I'm going to grab a few strands. I've found that this fly fishes better, like many things, when it's tied a little bit more sparse. If you get to the end, you can always cut out a little bit of material if you've added a little too much. But I try to tie it so that it's pretty see-through. It gives a really good baitfish kind of look in the water. I'm going to have this material go back about 2/3 of the way down the first piece that I took in, or that I tied in, to kind of start that tapered profile on the top. So I'm going to measure there. Again, I'm going to go about 2/3 of the way down, and I'm going to cut my material. Set that aside. All right, so now I've got the little hank. I'm going to tease out the ends again so that they're tapered and not just straight. Like that. All right. And again, I'm going to come and I'm going to wrap that material around my thread, just locking it in. The longer side closer to the eye of the hook. I'm going to pull it tight. I'm going to slide it up on top. Let that material lay flat on the surface. Couple of wraps to secure it. It slipped there. Couple of wraps over the butts to secure it. I'm going to let it sit down on top. So starting to build that baitfish profile. Couple of wraps there. All right. Now I'm going to add 2 more clumps of material. Another gray on top and another white on bottom. When I get up to the head, I like to have the color of the material show through. So I'm going to actually change thread here. I'm going to tie off my white thread. And for the head, I prefer to use a monofilament thread. So I'm going to add just a dot of Zap-A-Gap. Let it kind of lock down some of those fibers that I tied in a minute ago. I'm going to start my thread right there. Make sure that I've got a good solid base to start tying in the rest of the fly. All right, and I had that little bit of gray left over from putting the top on there. I'm going to use my leftover piece. In this piece, I'm going to have a little bit shorter than that last one. I'm going to have it go about halfway down the hook, and that's about the right amount there. But I think I need just a little more material. That feels a little sparse to me. So as you're going along, you can kind of add or take that material as you look at the fly and decide, you know, how bulky and what kind of shape you want it to be in. So I'm going to cut off a little bit more here. All right, that looks a little bit better. So right here at the eye of the hook, I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to bend that material around a little bit longer side toward the eye of the hook. I'm going to swing it over, set it right on top. A couple of thread wraps to lock it down. And I'll let this one kind of spill over the sides a little bit, creating a little bit more bulk in the top of that fly. I'm going to flip my vise over, and I'm going to do the same thing on the bottom. This just needs to be a short piece of white just to kind of create the throat on that fly. Sometimes I'll throw in, you know, a little bit of red or a little bit of pink if I want to. I'm going to have it taper back about that far, so I'm going to go about 3/4 of the way down on the other side, measuring it. Stagger those ends a little bit. Go right up to the eye, and same thing, I'm going to bend that material around so that the material on the right-hand side on the eye of the hook is a little bit longer. I'm going to swing it around, lay it right on top of the hook shank there. A couple of wraps, kind of keeping it in place, pulling up and back. All right, and it's going to lay down just like that. So now I have a great little baitfish profile here. If there's a couple of strands that stick out different ways, don't worry about it. You can clean that up at the end. By cutting those and tapering those pieces as we laid them in, we already have a great baitfish profile. You could take this and go fish it right now, and fish would eat it. The next step, I'm going to add a little bit of flash to the top, just to kind of give it a little bit more baitfishy look. I've got a little bit of baitfish color wing and flash type material, a very fine kind of crystal flash, or more of a flashaboo. It's not crinkled at all. I'm going to add to that a little bit of rainbow color crystal flash, a couple of strands. And sometimes I like a little bit darker color, so I've got a darker color crystal flash here, black. I'm just going to throw a couple of strands. I'm just laying all these down off camera, kind of stacking them together. All right, so I've got all of those mixed. I'm going to do the same thing that I did. I'm going to advance my thread again right up by the eye of the hook. I'm going to take that material that I'm using for the back of the hook, or for the back of the baitfish. I'm going to bend it around the thread. I'm going to slide it up, and I'm going to make sure I lay it right on top. A couple of wraps to hold it down. All right. We can always trim up the ends down here if a few are squirrely or a little bit too long. The other thing that I like to do on this fly is I like to add a little bit of a lateral line. So we're going to take, I've got some nice little Grizzly long hackle feathers. I'm going to take and grab a couple of those and add them on the side. It is the most delicate part of the fly. If you're fishing this fly hard or catch a lot of fish, those may tear up or fall off at some point. And that's okay. It'll still fish without it. But I really like the way that it looks on that finished fly. Kind of gives it a little bit extra character. So I'm going to grab two off the neck here. And if you have some hackle, some necks that the tips maybe aren't perfect on, no big deal. They're going to fish just fine. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take that feather, and I'm going to turn it so that the underside of the feather is out, so that it kind of curves out a little bit. It's about 3/4 as long as the fly, and I'm going to kind of hold it on the side with my thread. I'm going to pinch and wrap over a couple of wraps. And if you notice the feather kind of curved there, sometimes you can take and move it, down and up and get it to lay a little bit more flat on the side. It won't matter too much in a minute because we're going to glue some eyes on, and those will help keep that feather right where you want it. Another trick, if you are having a feather that's wanting to do its own thing, I think I learned this from Dave Whitlock years ago, but take your Zap-A-Gap on your thread, and you can do just a tiny drop or two, just enough to kind of wet the thread. And if you hold that feather in place, you can do a couple of wraps, and that little minuscule amount of glue is going to help to lock that in place. Works really well with other things like bucktail and other slippery materials. Allows you to glue very specifically in a spot to keep materials where you want it without adding too much glue or having it, you know, seep into another material where you didn't want it. All right, so I got one feather on there. I'm going to do the other side now. I'm going to kind of hold them up next to each other, make sure they're about the same length. I'm going to hold it in with my thumb and finger. A couple of wraps. Make sure it's where I want it. Perfect. All right, and just to lock it down, because those feathers like to come out, I'm going to do just another little bit of Zap-A-Gap on the thread, just a couple little beads. 1 or 2 wraps. I'm going to go ahead and trim the feathers off there. Don't have to be super close, just get it cleaned up a little bit. We're going to glue over the head here at the end, so it'll cover any little stragglers that are out. All right, just like that. All right, so now we're going to whip finish our bait fish here. You can cover some of those butt ends if there's any still sticking up there. A couple of whip finishes just to kind of finish off the head. All right. Like I say, you could probably take this and go fish it right now, and it would fish really, really well. You could throw it for anything that wants to eat a bait fish. I like the look of eyes on my bait fish. I think, you know, I'm headed down to the Amazon here in a couple of days, and I think eyeballs are a real key feature on a fly down in that fishery, especially, you know, red-colored eyes. A lot of the bait fish down there, a lot of the smaller peacock bass, they all have red eyes. So I tend to lean kind of that color. You know, saltwater, you know, a clear eye like that can be a really good choice. Whatever you've got on hand. I like to glue my eyes down. This is E6000, a little adhesive. So I'm going to take a couple of eyeballs. And get a little bit of E6000 on my bodkin. There we go. All right, I'm going to hold that feather flat. I'm going to push that eyeball down where I want it. All right. Do the other side. Okay. There we go. Make sure that feather slides down a little bit, goes where I want it to. Most of the time I'll take the fly out of the vise so that I can make sure that those eyes are not only even but straight. Peacock bass can be kind of picky sometimes in that one day they might like a fly moving really slow, and this fly does that well. It'll hang in the water column really well, not sinking out of sight. It'll kind of like a tarpon fly will, so a fish can follow it and catch up to it without exerting a lot of energy. But some days when they're really aggressive, they want a fly that moves rather quickly. So making sure that the eyes on your fly are glued kind of symmetrical and even allows this fly to track well. When you strip it quickly, it's going to move and go in a straight line. It's not going to twist or twirl. So that's another really neat feature about this fly is it, you know, like I say, it casts easy, but then it retrieves very, very well at speed. This fly is also really good if you've ever been out to the Sea of Cortez or or Central and South America chasing roosterfish. You know, a lot of times roosters, they want to fly moving, 100 miles an hour. Sometimes you got to put the rod under your arm and, two-handed retrieve to get enough speed to really get them interested. And this fly has proven itself out there as well. It just tracks really, really well. At this point, I usually give it a few minutes, let those eyes dry, and then I like to use something like LiquidFusion and cover those eyes, cover the the monofilament thread wraps at the head to lock everything down and secure those eyes in place. If you're a fan of epoxy, you can use a 2-part 5-minute type epoxy and do the same thing. But just something that's gonna cover those thread wraps at the head, cover those eyes. Help that head hold its shape so that fly is going to last a long time for you and catch a lot of fish. Anyway, this is, like I say, one of my favorite little bait fish patterns. Pick up some of these materials, tie a couple up, take them out to your favorite fishery, and I hope they serve you as well as it served me.